Greetings, true believers, and welcome to another interdimensional episode of History of the Marvel Universe. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more marvelous content. This week's tale begins in a trailer park located in the woodlands of California. There lived the young married couple of Thomas and Linda Pritchett. One day, their peaceful life together was interrupted by an unexpected knock on the door. Tom answered it to find, much to his surprise, an elf. But not just any elf. It was an elf with a gun who shot Tom Pritchett point blank. And this wasn't a one-off incident, as the elf, now known as Melf, was responsible for several more shootings over the following weeks. The next such incident occurred in Las Vegas when the elf with a gun posed as a cab driver. This time his victim was a man named Charles Lester, who just so happened to take that particular cab with his wife. In the Grand Canyon, a man named Stu and his girlfriend came upon what they thought to be a vision of a Native American shaman. However, this was another of Melf's disguises, and for the third time he referred to his victim by name before shooting him. However, any pattern to these murders was broken by the next incident, which happened while the Incredible Hulk was stomping across the American Southwest. An unidentified woman who had been protesting the release of a supposed snuff film fled to the women's restroom of a nearby building to avoid the Hulk. There she encountered the elf with a gun who shot her without warning or explanation. The elf's origin and motives were shrouded in mystery, but his seemingly random rampage soon came to an end. In upstate New York, a paperboy named Greg and his dog Patch were making their rounds, passing by the home of Kyle Richmond, secretly the Defender known as Nighthawk. The elf with a gun stepped out from the foliage, preparing to take his next victim. However, before Greg was even made aware of the danger, Melf became the victim himself, being struck by a moving van belonging to a front company for advanced idea mechanics. To date, the elf's origins are unconfirmed, and while there are known races of elves, including those from Alfheim, Svartalheim, Otherworld, Weird World, and the North Pole, there is no known connection between any of these and the elf with a gun. However, Melf wasn't the only one of his kind, and another elf with a gun was later encountered by a foursome of superpowered adventurers known as Kiss, while they were hopping through various dimensions. This white-haired elf curbed his murderous tendencies, intrigued by the strange travelers. He revealed that they were in a dimension known as the Land of Leftovers, where important figures of the 1960s lived out that decade in perpetuity. He also pointed them towards a dinosaur detective named Saurian Holmes who could help them with their journey. Ironically, after parting ways, one of the members of KISS remarked that he hoped the elf would get hit by a truck. One of these elves was again seen after the supposed death of the aforementioned Defender Kyle Richmond, Nighthawk. His friend and nurse, Luann Bloom, questioned the official story regarding his death. One evening, she received a call from someone who claimed to have proof that S.H.I.E.L.D. lied to her. However, when she met this person, it turned out to be another white-haired elf. Bloom accompanied the elf in his Ford Model T, curious to find out what he knew. However, the elf brought Luann to a pocket dimension where he introduced her to his masters, the enigmatic Tribunal. And just to layer on the absurdity, Luann Bloom learned that she was not human at all, but a robot called a time buoy built by the Tribunal to gather information on the Defenders. So this leaves us with an important question. Just what the hell is going on here? Well, an explanation was posited after the original four Defenders, Doctor Strange, Namor, the Hulk, and the Silver Surfer, came face to face with an elf with a gun. The elf shot the four Defenders, but rather than firing regular bullets, the weapon sent the heroes careening through time. They landed in the 24th century, where the Earth was a lifeless husk on the brink of collapse, and were told that they were somehow responsible. The Defenders were then brought to the Tribunal, who purported to explain the origin of the elves with guns. They claimed that they became aware of Earth's fate and wished to avert it. They created an army of time agents capable of traveling through time without damaging the course of history, modeling them after elves, thinking they were a constant in the Earth's multitudes of cultures. However, they were clearly mistaken, as the elves created chaos and confusion wherever they appeared. The elves were armed with time displacement guns and instructed to remove those whose existence contributed to the destruction of Earth. This included some of those who were thought to be killed by Melf, but their removal did nothing to avert the coming global disaster. And so they were allegedly returned to their proper place in time with their memories of what happened erased. Evidently, the only way to save the planet from this fate was for these original defenders to never unite again, to which they agreed. Of course, nature abhors a vacuum, and a different group of heroes soon came together to form the new Defenders. So this should be it, right? The elves with guns were explained, and the Earth was saved. Well, Dr. Strange investigated further sometime later and discovered that the Tribunal's story about the Earth ending because of them was completely false. Some kind of cosmic hoax concocted for unknown reasons, so expertly implemented that even the Eye of Agamotto did not initially detect the deception. This leaves us with the uncomfortable truth that nothing the Tribunal said was reliable, and so the true origins and motives of the elves with guns remain largely unproven. There's been speculation that the elves were created by a cabal of intelligent cockroaches, but this is likely no more than an unfounded conspiracy theory. Furthermore, another elf with a gun soon appeared, Relf, the nephew of the original Melf. Seemingly unlike his predecessors, Relf possessed a variety of magical abilities, but those came with complex limitations which he couldn't be bothered to keep track of. Seeking vengeance on the truck driver who'd killed his uncle Melf, Relf joined forces with the notorious Circus of Crime, minus their ringmaster Maynard Tybalt, who was trying to reform at the time. The circus sent the elf with a gun to steal Tybalt's mesmerizing hypno disc. However, after shooting the ringmaster, Relf returned with the wrong device. It should be noted that these events occurred during a strange dimensional warp, which somehow caused multiple unrelated Earths to cross over with one another. The sitar-shaped device that Relf stole from Tybalt was initially found by an extra-dimensional police officer named Dragon. It was in fact a mind-altering device known as a neurostim, created by a scientist named Dr. Brainerd to keep those wearing it docile. Not knowing this, the Chicago Police Department had the device sent to the FBI, who gave it to Maynard Tybalt to study, where it was then taken by the elf with a gun. The Circus of Crime mocked Relf for the mistake, who in turn shot all of them except for the beautiful Princess Python. Relf then used his magical powers to retrieve the bullets and revive the fallen criminals, causing them to gain newfound respect for the elf with a gun. He and Princess Python then confronted the ringmaster in the hospital, who explained that the FBI had likely come to his apartment after he was shot to retrieve the neurostim. And indeed, the feds had made a similar mistake and shipped the ringmaster's hypnodisc to Officer Dragon in Chicago. Heading there by transforming Princess Python's pet into a winged creature, Relf contacted the officer and arranged a trade, the hypnodisc for the neurostim. Dragon agreed and traveled to the meeting place alongside a being ostensibly from yet another universe, a destroyer duck. However, while all that was happening, others were also investigating the attack on the ringmaster. And so at the same time, Spider-Man and Peter Parker arrived at the meeting place along with Howard the Duck and his girlfriend, Beverly Switzler. This was during a time when Peter Parker had retired from being Spider-Man and his clone, Ben Reilly, had taken over. The scene soon erupted into chaos, with the various parties getting in each other's way. Things soon came to a head when the elf knocked Beverly out with the butt of his gun and summoned a veritable cavalcade of other dimensional ducks and accompanying women. The sensational Spider-Man and the savage Dragon quickly called a truce, each taking the device they were after. Officer Dragon and Destroyer Duck escaped to their own universe, taking Howard and Beverly with them as the mysterious dimensional shenanigans came to a close. However, Spider-Man and Peter also escape with Howard and Beverly, meaning one of the two pairs was an other-dimensional duplicate. Regardless, the ones who remained in the Marvel Universe continued their lives, never knowing the possibility of them essentially being clones. The two who crossed over into Dragon's universe dyed their feathers and/or hair and changed their names to Leonard the Duck and Rhonda Martini. As for the elf with a gun, he departed having decided to avenge his Uncle Melf without help. It's unknown if he succeeded, but years later, when Eddie Brock was diagnosed with cancer, he decided to auction off the alien symbiote Venom. And in the crowd of that auction, one might have spotted Ralph, having reacquired the Neurostim or simply wearing a replica of it. There have been very few subsequent sightings of the elves with guns across the Omniverse. Shortly after the closing of the dimensional phenomena which caused the alternate Earths to interact, Dr. Gregory Brainerd, the scientist who created the Neurostim in the first place, was assassinated by a gnome with a gun. However, it's unknown if this creature has any relation to the previously seen elves with guns. Another elf with a gun was at one point seen rescuing several heroes from a group of demons, but this occurred in a distant cosmos so far removed from our own that it is often thought to be fictional. As of now, there are two compelling hypotheses about the nature of the elves with guns. One is simply that the Tribunal, encountered by the Defenders, did in fact create the elves as time agents. This theory is backed up by the fact that Doctor Strange's Eye of Agamotto seemed to confirm that the Tribunal were in fact what they claimed to be. If this were true, it would likely be the case that the Tribunal were simply mistaken about the Defenders being responsible for the end of the world. A completely believable proposal, given that, by their own admission, the Tribunal were greatly mistaken about a number of things. In this scenario, Ralph may have been some sort of renegade who gained power from an unknown source in his quest to avenge Melf. The other hypothesis is that the elves with guns exist only to create confusion, as agents of chaos. This distinction could in fact be literal, since Lord Chaos is a cosmic abstract that exists in the Marvel Universe and could theoretically be responsible for the creation of the elves with guns, although this is unconfirmed. And so the question still remains, will the world ever learn the truth about the elf with a gun? Well, perhaps not, but that's all I've got for you this week, and thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like, share the video, and subscribe for more Marvelous content. Be sure to leave a comment letting me know what Marvel hero or villain you want to hear about next, and as always, the issues referenced in this video are listed in the description below if you'd like to read them for yourself, as well as links to other places you can find me, including my Patreon page, where for only $1 a month you can get your name in these special thanks here, and vote on monthly polls to have a topic added to the schedule. So until next time, true believers, happy holidays, and Excelsior!